Show me hold.
So this is a two-voice poem comparing and contrasting characters from our text of Esperanza Rising that the students did.
I remember when you guys were doing that. So this is a new one.
This is this year's.
Oh, can you tell me about that? Why'd you pick that one?
Well, they pick any two characters.
No, but why'd you pick that one to share it?
Because it was handy to grab in my
Okay.
because I found it right in my in their writing portfolio.
And what do you notice about their writing in that?
Well, you know, we talk about too. We always write for different purposes. So in this example, because I'm a big sentence variety is a big thing in my room, and I don't like them starting sentences with pronouns.
Okay.
In fifth grade. But I say we're writing for a different purpose here. So the fact that they have I's and my's and we's, I have to get over. But they again just they really had to dissect. They started usually with a Venn diagram. And they realized that this is a different way that you can organize a Venn diagram by comparing and contrasting. And again, they presented them and shared them actually at our celebration, our harvest celebration with the parents. I had a few kids sprinkle it in between readers' theater.
So the parents like that?
Yes, it was this
The
is a
presentation of these is really awesome.
cool.
When you
Yeah,
hear
their
your kids
voices
say it, and then they, in the middle, they say it together in unison. It's really
and we talk
that's
about
the best part.
the power of this too, when we talk about how many voices are there.
Yeah.
And they're like, 2. I'm like, no, there's 3. Because there's your voice, their voice, and then your voice together. There's
Yeah,
3 voices.
exactly.
And like then realizing that it's a third voice when there are 2 voices harmonized together is kind of cool.
And what was the experience like when the kids presented to their parents?
They're proud. They're proud, and it's a different, like I said, it's just a different way to present things outside the box. This is one of the found poetries. This is we read Hatchet as a class through our natural disasters and survival kind of unit that I created as a result of it. So this was a scene that he took from pages 29 to 32 that he kind of crunched down. And it just says, memory, knife, slicing deep with hate, crashing, tearing, screaming. Now quiet, pain, memory, crash over. I am alive, eyes closed and slept. Divorce, secret. As sleep left, the world came back.
Wow.
So it's a pretty powerful, like that he got from.
Did you revise that?
I've actually removed myself from the full revising and editing process of kids' work because what I found over the years is becoming my piece, not theirs. Like it's so hard as a teacher not to.
Exactly.
So they do their first revisions and edits on their own. Then they do get a peer that they dialogue with, and then they write their final from that. I've completely, and then once I grade it, I will go in and revise and edit for them. But I
Do you videotape a little bit about about their experience in the process?
No.
Their reflection? That would be cool.
yeah, they have great conversations. I have to say, like they really have learned to dialogue with each other. And
I'm telling you, that's a good thing to document.
this was the one when Javina had done this with us a couple years ago. This our land.
Oh, yeah.
This is another
This
one.
went with the glance process.
Yes. This was for human rights, and just talking about human rights. So we did the song and listened to looked at the poem. And they created a found poem. That was the beginning of the year, this year.
This land, huh?
Yeah,
It's good.
What'd you say?
this land.
This land is your home?
Because that was our project.
Yeah.
And then this is a 5-picture charade. We talk about human rights that they did, that just kind of background knowledge in regards to the Great Depression and what led up to kind of the human rights and the need.
Now, what happens with their writing? Are you excited by how they write to those images?
I get excited just to see them, like I said, for transition-wise, sentence variety, strong word choices. Those are all things that we really hammer home in 5th grade. I'm going to see them implement it in their 5-picture charade. So we have like during, here she said jobless men, societies of homeless people pinned together. Like instead of saying they are pinned, just the strong word choice, attempting to make things better. President Roosevelt established. So inverting their sentences. And so it's just a good, quick way for them to work on and practice those tools.
And do you see what they're doing there with word choice continuing on?
Into other areas?
Yeah.
We're still working on that process. Like when we say, just because we did it here doesn't mean now you
Doesn't
don't
make
do
it artificial only to this.
No, they're
Yeah.
working on, but unfortunately then, it's somewhat of a lost craft then, you know, when there's, and that's where I say you don't do it because I ask you to do it, you do it because you realize it's good for you, or,
That's the hard.
and
that's
we
the
just
hard-
had that conversation even again with close reading, you know, you don't close read because Mrs. Farrar tells you
Right.
to close read,
Right.
you close read because it serves a purpose for you, like, so then, you know, getting that internal, that intrinsic motivation that, oh wow, this really does help me, this is why I'm doing it, versus when they go into another classroom and they're not being required to do that, they stop doing it.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you should still continue to do it, even though that teacher hasn't asked you to do it. So that's where it's the,
Well, I can tell you that. So I pull some math students out of Maureen's room for math AIS, and when they're doing word problems, they automatically close read it,
they better.
circling this, underlining this, crossing this out. You know, what's the question asking, without me telling them. So
There you go, Maureen.
Yeah.
so they're using a strategy. I don't
Next
tell
year
them
they
to
won't
do it.
I'll tell you.
But if they
No, they
keep
won't
doing it
do it.
every year because they realize that this technique is helping me understand the question.
Well,
That's what
they'll
it's
do
all
it
about.
every year if the next teacher continues the practice.
That's what
Because-
it's where Jess
Right.
is hopefully
Because it can't be
going to.
one person doing it, I think, because it seems too artificial to that person.
Yeah, because then why
Right.
why do I have to do it in that class?
Right. That's why if you're working in digital stories and if the next year it's PSAs, they can say, wow, you know, I
I did
learned
this,
that
yeah.
skill this year. So, you know, it's still important because the next teacher's doing it.
Yeah, so there's 6 math sections I pull from. 2 of those sections use some sort of close reading strategy on their math word problems. And those are the 2 sections that do better on their math word problems. So
There's a correlation.
so
And I work with, after school, a group of all 5th graders. And I have another group that look at me like, what do you mean close read the question? Or like, and I'm like, close read the question. Like, what does that mean? To circle your note? And like, they don't have. So I said, just the
It's a
continuum
little
and
frustration.
the, I don't know, just the, I don't know. This is, and we have, I don't know if you know Jess LeBlanc, is working with us to kind of try and help the continuum of things here and to share out of good practices and what works and what doesn't work. And, for the benefit of the children. I said, oh, it's always for the benefit of the kids. That's the,
And going back to what you were saying before, making it meaningful, I feel like the standards are really anchored in this work. But I don't think we've had the time to process it and say, like, oh yeah, that, because we're so consumed by, like, I have to do this, this, and this. We're very much, I think you said, bell to bell, gotta fit it all in. But if we actually took time to say, like,
absorb what.
yeah, you know, this goes with, I think our kids are required to write over time. You know, like by doing this, they're writing over time, check. I think a lot of our frustration is like,
And justifying why we do different
Yeah.
writing. Like I had to justify why I was doing a survival journal.
Right.
Like, for natural disasters and how does this fit into the standards? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we're doing good writing. Like it's, look at their writing samples. Like we're still talking about all of the, it's just we're doing it in a more creative way. Like, and they're more engaged.
More engaged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bad thing. Like it's just,
yeah.
you know, you're constantly trying to justify what you do. I don't know, that's the frustration.
And I think one of the things that I've been noticing is we've lost sight of grade level teams developing units, right? You used to sit down and plan out a unit together and then say, you know, by this time we'll use a 2-voice poem or this or that to, right? Like we've completely lost sight of that.
And why don't you have that anymore?
I think it's a lot of miscommunication, where we were 3 years ago when the state was coming in.
Things
You
were
know.
pushed down our throat that this is, we said like, things have been pushed down our throat, this is what you have to do.
Right.
That like took the creativity away from a teacher saying like, well, how can I do this in a different way? Or meet the expectations of, where we, you know, just fell into that robot pattern, like we
Right.
must execute this, like, you know, and now I'm finally taking it back. Like, I'm taking back
Well, you know,
as a teacher, like,
there are like some nice chinks in the armor now because that whole the new chancellor is probably going to be, you know, a person who's been supportive of the opt-out movement and, you know, very suspicious of high-stakes testing and.
And you know what's interesting is a lot of these things are set in the curriculum that we're using.
Mhm.
So you kind of know, like, all right, that's what we need to go back to. Like the two-voice poem is right in the 5th grade module.
So it's not like you even have to reinvent or have to
Exactly.
justify your existence. You're already doing it.
Yeah.
It's
PSAs
just
are part of the 3rd grade. You know, like all the good things
all the
we're
things
talking
you want.
about.
Yes, are
Right.
there.
I think it's just interpretation of like
Then
Priorities.
tweaking it to make it your own.
right
And
what's
supplementing it.
mandated and what's
Like you said, what's
grade
miss,
level.
the big piece that's missing from it is the reading, like the
Yeah.
and figuring out how you can bring that back in because we lost the reading groups, we lost the in it all. Like it's
we lost our foundation for literacy.
literacy.
And that's what you want back.
That's what we're
Definitely.
What do you think, Lucas?
Well, I was thinking, I'm a little bit behind on the
Readers are good
conversation.
writers. Good readers are good writers. There's
But I know
the-
one of the reasons
so much
that
all the
I
time,
think
I know.
we've had some disruption in our grade level planning for things is the disruption in our staffing.
Yeah.
You know,
That's-
we constantly go from
evolving and changing.
and I understand we have to. It's a numbers game. We have to go from 3 sections of a grade to 2 sections and back to 3 and 2. And so you have staff members moving around. Myself being one of them. I've been in a lot of different grades in a lot of different rooms, and so I would love to get with a team for 3 years straight and work with that team and build that curriculum. But you know, it just doesn't necessarily happen, and you got to go where the students are, where the numbers are, and where the need is. And so right now I'm in a department, a science department with Mr. K, Prokoka, and we're doing some really good stuff. We sit down, we plan, and he and I are confident that through grades 6, 7, and 8, the students are going to have a very consistent science education because we're teaching the same way. We're using the standards, we're using a lot of the same strategies, and that's super important, and that's what we want. But you know, we have to stay here. He has to stay in his position. I have to stay in mine for at least a year or 2 for that to really work.
Right.
So
And that's the thing too. What's left for the teacher that has to shift so frequently? You know, I think we're just missing the process or the program or the system. I don't know.
the consistency.
Yeah. Curriculum. You know, whatever
The time
we want
to develop it. Like it's this is my 3rd year in 5th grade, I think.
Yeah.
3rd, right?
Yep.
And I finally feel like I somewhat have a handle. Like, and who knows what's going to happen next year. They're talking about Lupin. They're talking about this. And I'm like,
yeah. So if all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
in the 6th grade next year
Yeah.
teaching English,
Mhm.
You could still use some of those strategies, but it's a new curriculum. So, but I mean that is sort of par for the course with modern education. I think that there's a lot of movement, especially in this district, and we have to,
especially in the school.
in this school.
I'd say
and
district.
Yeah, I would
just,
say school.
Well, this has been. I'm going to shut this off now because I've